We just love you, Lord, we praise you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, this week we're in our third week of our Thanks and Giving series. The last 2 weeks we've actually spent the majority of it talking about thanks. So this morning we're going to talk about the fun subject of giving. It's really entertaining though, because this time of the year we're about to see, because it's Thanksgiving, it's soon to be Christmas time. I know that's scary for a lot of us. If you're like me, I have literally done zero Christmas shopping. I saw something I laughed at. It said women's shopping list, and had like parents and cousins and everybody else. It says man's shopping list, wife. And that's pretty accurate for me and my family. Kristen loves to shop. I give her ideas for like my dad, but everybody else is kind of like, I don't know what to buy him. So she handles that. But we're going to start seeing bell ringers outside stores. I've already been seeing charities and everybody gearing up, asking for end-of-year donations. So we're kind of being bombarded with being asked for requests of giving. Part of it is, this is actually, if you look at statistics with IRS revenue, stuff like that, this is actually the time of the year when the most is donated to charities, churches, any of those, out of any other month of the year is December. Which kind of surprises me, because you know what I think of September of? Buying Christmas presents, spending this money everywhere else, but then somehow, even though we're spending extra money, we still find ways to be charitable as people. I don't know about you guys, Salvation, like the bell ringer, Salvation Army, when they're out at the store, do you guys like go in the store, you come out and you got some change because you just spent something, you put the change in there? Anybody else do that? I do that most of the time. If I'm using cash. That's the worst part for me, is I very rarely carry cash anymore. And if I do, it's like I got a couple 20s or whatever, so it's like, well, groceries were a lot more than that. Just our dog food costs more than usually the change I carry in my pocket. So it's like, okay, well, I need to figure something out. Like, maybe I'll buy a pack of gum with this so I have some change, some dollar bills, something I can give. But the small contributions we make over a series of time add up to quite a significant amount of money. I can't remember the amounts, but I know one year I was helping with Salvation Army with the funding they were getting, and they usually announce, at least then, they announce how much money they would get at the end of the year, and this has changed. Sure, sometimes you get dollar bills, sometimes people are really generous and they'll give 5, 10s, and 20s or more, but the majority of what's in those buckets is change. Quarters and pennies and nickels and dimes, stuff that we think, well, this isn't going to add up to anything. But they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in Missouri on change. Not even a national level. National level, it's a very significant amount of money, but it's from small amounts of giving. Part of it for us is, I think that we kind of get confused sometimes that we think if we don't have a lot to give, that it doesn't mean anything. If I can't give, well, I can't give this, so it's not worth giving. But as we see with even the Salvation Army, the way that they receive money, it's not about the size of the gift, but it's kind of the heart of it, because none of us have to. None of us have to give. They're not, holding us down. That bell is not like a summon to us to come and give money. It doesn't, attack us. Some of us might feel guilty walking by. It's like with the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. They're outside of Walmart. You're going in and out, and they're like, you want to buy some popcorn? And I think Boy Scouts got ripped off. I just want to say that. Because I will buy Girl Scout cookies. I do not eat popcorn though. So it's like, maybe you guys should sell some like beef jerky or something. Like this would help out, I think. But they're out there and you feel guilty. At least I do. And I feel like in Branson, almost year round, there's somebody outside Walmart. If it's not Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Salvation Army, it's other charities that are out there. And it's like, man, there's people here all the time. And you know what's funny? Most of the time, being totally honest here, most of the time I don't give money. Part of it is if I don't know the charity it is, I don't know how reputable it is, I don't know where the money's going, stuff like that, I'm kind of hesitant to give money. Not that I think I can control where my money goes, but there's some charities I know that go to really good places, and how it's managed versus charities are like, I've never heard of this. How do I know it's real? kind of thing. But December, November, that time of year, I'm usually more generous. I'm like, why not? Someone at the drive-thru asks you, hey, we give $1 to this. You want us to round up and you'll give the change to the charity? Sure, why not? It's no big deal. And I've always kind of fought with that. For instance, on Kristen's checks every week, every other week when she gets paid, she has a donation that's automatically pulled out every paycheck that goes to Children's Miracle Network. And they do fundraisers for Children's Miracle Network at restaurants, at Walmart, at a lot of these places. And most of the time I'm like, no, I already give. Like, we already give to them, trying to spread it around. But giving is not just about money, it's not just about time, it's not just about resources. There's so many ways that we can give. When I was a kid, I was terrible at giving. I mean, terrible. You know, and I think when you're a kid, you actually call it sharing. Well, share with your siblings or share with your cousins. No, like, this is mine, this is my gift, this is it. You know, in my grandma's, for Christmas time, there was 3 boys that were all within about 3 years of age. Me and my cousin were 2 months apart, so we always got the exact same Christmas presents in different colors. And like half the time, and me and him, you know, he'd be like, I wanted the blue one, you want to trade me? No, this is mine. You know, this is my toy. This is whatever it was. I mean, that's just, you know, kids. I was a bad sharer. When you're an adult, it's, you know, you're bad at giving. When you're at work, you're bad at doing this. I was bad at sharing. I remember I was that frugal kid. Like, my sisters were the people that they would go and they want to buy as much as they can. They'd get their birthday money, and they get $30, and they're going to go to, like, if you're not from like Claire's or something like that, where you can buy like all these like little dollar things, $2 things, and they end up like this whole like armful of stuff for like $30. That's what they wanted. That's not what I did. Who shops like that? You try to get them as many things as you can for your money and want to do that? I go for the quality of it. I'm like, I want the biggest, baddest, coolest thing I can buy. So, and that might be a difference between guys and girls. Because when me and Kristen Christmas shop for each other, Kristen usually is looking for like, well, here's some small things, here's this, and I'm like, she's like, well, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, I could use this. Like, it's like one thing. She's like, well, I don't want to just buy you one thing. I'm like, but it's what I want. Like, that's what I would really want to have. That's what I want to use. So we kind of find ways around that. But when me and Kristen first started dating, like our first Christmas, like I paid for like the window tint for her car and all this other stuff, and she bought me several small items, and I'm like, well, I only bought you one, but it's big item. It's really cool, but that's not the way she saw it. She'd rather have several smaller items than one big one. So I learned that after the first year. But when I was a kid, I was probably 7 or so, I saved all my birthday money, and I saved birthday money, and I had some other money, and it was about $100. And this is 20 plus years ago. Remote control cars have come a million light years in that time, it feels like. I can go buy a really cool remote control car now for like $30. And it goes fast, it actually works really well. I know because my nephew got one and we had to test it out for him. You know, I had to make sure everything worked. Someone's got to make sure. Uncle's there to protect him. But you can buy them really nice out. But then $100 was like, okay, you can buy a nice remote control one. So they had this semi-truck at Radio Shack. Some of you guys might not remember Radio Shack. It's kind of like a gadget store / Best Buy / they had that hole in the wall stuff that you can't find anywhere else. This is when Radio Shack was still in the mall in Springfield. Huh. And it was a semi-truck. It was black and yellow, and it had a trailer on it, and the lights turned on and flashed, and horn, and all this cool stuff. My dad owned a semi-truck, so I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I got it. And I played with it. And then after I played with it for about a week, I don't think I ever touched it again. Because it was slow, the batteries died fast, all the excuses we kind of made. Because it's like, you drive and you're like, wow, it can get stuck on everything. It is not like it going over like a little rail between carpet and linoleum. It's like, no, it just sits there and spins the tires. Like, so this isn't very effective. But I think even as adults, we do the same thing. We buy something like, I gotta have this. We save up our money. If you're a guy and you're like, I gotta have this, and you save the money, or if you're a lady that shops the same way, or if you buy the several small items. I bet if I went into your closets, to your garage, to your storage sheds, to your storage places, wherever you hide stuff, into your kitchen drawers, I could find a whole lot of stuff in your house that you thought, I just gotta have this, and you've not used it forever. I have a perfect example of that today. See these shoes I'm wearing this morning? I forgot I even bought them. I was telling Kristen this morning, I need to buy some brown leather shoes. I don't have any that I can. And she's like, you have some in your shoe. I have a shoe chest. Me and Kristen differ this way. I actually really like shoes, so I have a lot of pairs of shoes. She likes flip-flops. I know most guys aren't supposed to like shoes, it's okay. I have 15 or so pairs. It's not a lot to me, but but you gotta have dress shoes, and you need boots, and then you gotta have tennis shoes, and then you have your beach wear. So you gotta have variations. That's the only place where I actually probably a little bit more like most women than men. I like having my variation in shoes. I didn't even realize I had these. And I mean, they look brand new, so I'm pretty sure I've worn them once maybe. And then I was like, well, they were probably really uncomfortable last time I wore them. Well, I grabbed inserts out of my other ones. But how many things in our house do you have that you forget that you bought even that we thought we had to have? I need these, but we didn't spend the money. How far does that same money go in other areas where it's like, well, maybe if we don't buy this second. I kind of like I'm a research guy, so I don't buy anything that often spur of the moment. I'm going to research it to death. I'm going to find everything I can about it, and then I'll make a decision what I'm going to buy. But how many things do we have that we've just kind of bought, never used, and the money was just kind of wasted? So that's kind of the direction we'll be talking a little bit as we're talking about giving and generosity. Part of it is, if you have a lot of these things, clothes, shoes, jackets. I actually went through my jacket closet and have like 5 or 10 jackets that we're going to give away because it's like somebody, as it's getting towards wintertime, needs this more than my closet does. Because I will never wear this jacket was given to me, or this jacket was from here or from there. I'll never wear it. I might as well give it to someone who needs it. So I think I could probably do that with some pairs of shoes too, if we're totally honest. Because if I don't wear it, someone else may need it a lot more. But how much stuff do we have like that? The story we're looking at today, we're actually going to look at it in 2 different books. So we're going to start in Luke 21, 1 through 4, and then we'll be in Mark for the next part. But this story is actually a fairly common story, fairly well-known story. It's about a woman who goes to an offering plate behind wealthy people. They're giving 10% of everything they own. Their tithe, that's 10%. They're giving from what they've earned in their fields. They're giving from their spices they've grown in their garden. They're giving from their sheep, from their flocks, from everything they have. They're giving their 10%. And she walks up and she gives 2 small coins. And Jesus says, she gave more than they did. And they're like, no. Well, something we have to understand in their time, and I think if we're totally honest, in our subconscious, it still happens in our time, but in their time, if somebody was wealthy, they had a lot of money, they had a lot of possessions, they had, a big family, they had all of these things, they were blessed by God. That was their culture. If you've read the book of Job, it says that the reason all the bad things happened to him is because he was cursed. That's what his friends, his good friends told him. He was cursed and he was a terrible human being and he needed to repent. Really good friends that he had. But, not really. But then, that's how they believed. So when they see all these wealthy people giving, they're thinking, those are the ones that are truly blessed by God. Those are the ones that have a relationship with God. This widow who gives 2 small coins, she's obviously cursed. If someone was disabled, or if somebody had a disability, or someone couldn't work, or someone couldn't do this, they were like, oh, they're cursed. That was their culture. If you can see that in multiple instances. One, Jesus says, who sinned for this man to be born this way? Who sinned? That's not the way Jesus saw. He said no one sinned. He said he was born this way so that my miracle could be seen. So it's not something that money or wealth is not a blessing always. A great philosopher once said, more money, more problems, but not really a philosopher. Don't quote that one. Don't look that one up. You can hashtag that one later, I guess. But that's not from me. That's from a rapper from 20, 30 years ago now. But when we look at that, sometimes we see, and I think in our hearts and our minds, sometimes we see someone and we think they're wealthy, and we see what they have, and we're like, they must be really blessed to have that, or they must have done this. It's like sometimes it's not correlated. In one of the movies recently that came out in the last several years of Christian movies, it's talking about prayer. The movie's talking about that, and the lady says, well, sometimes the devil likes to keep people where they are, keep them comfortable, where they have a lot, but they have, so there's no reason to turn. So when we do that, we kind of see that in ourselves, where sometimes wealth isn't always the best thing for us. Sometimes it's a level of comfort. Sometimes I know people who are wealthy who give more than anyone else, and it's not because they want to, because they're like, well, I want to show we're better than other people, but they give because that was their heart. Something for me as me and Kristen, our goal is always to give more the next year. If we gave $1,000 last year, we want to try to give $1,050 or $1,100 next year. We want to try to do that. If it's because I can make more the next year and I can give more because of that, that's fantastic. If it means I have to sacrifice a little bit to do that, then that's fine too. But that's kind of always been our goal. And it's not because we want to look better. It's not because we want to put ourselves on a pedestal or anything like that, because I struggled with giving for a long time, even after I answered the call to preach. Because this was my money. I worked hard for what I had. I wasn't giving it to nobody. If they needed it, they needed to get out there and work for it the same way I did. No one gave me anything. I could go on for excuses all day. But that's the way we view giving. We kind of see sometimes they're prosperous, so they must be blessed. They're not prosperous, so they must not be blessed. They must not love Jesus, and they must not love God because they're going through this. But that's not biblical. And if you look at the story of Jesus, and that's part of why Jesus, as we go into the Christmas season, that's the first reason why Jesus came the way he did. He didn't come as the son of a king. He could have. He could have been born into any family he wanted to, right? Any family he wanted to. He chose just a simple person that was going to marry a carpenter. They had a job, they had a trade, but it wasn't a wealthy family. If Jesus himself was not trying to pursue that, he wasn't trying to put forth that image. So there's a difference there between the two. So let's go ahead and look at verse 1 here, and then we'll move to Mark. Verse 1 and 2 says, while Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. Then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins. Verse 3, I tell you the truth, Jesus said, this poor widow has given more than all the rest of them. For they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she has. And then we'll look at Mark 12:41 through 44. Mark 12:41 says, Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowd dropped their money. See, it's about the same. Many rich people put in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. Jesus called his disciples to him. Come here. And kind of that teaching moment, kind of you're a parent, you have the kids, hey, come here, I want to tell you something. I tell you the truth, the poor widow has given more than all the others who are making contributions. For they gave a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. So we see Jesus is pointing out what she gave versus what everyone else gave. So even though the amounts were drastically different, that's not the point. What we can see here, the biggest thing I think we can see here as we look through these verses is that God does not care about the amount we can give. That's not his concern. That's not what he cares about. If you're a millionaire and you write a $100,000 check, it's totally different than if you're someone who's working week to week and you make $1,000 a week and you're writing a $150 check. It's totally different because at the end of the day, we'll only have $800 left, and if we all know taxes will take probably another $200 of that. But the millionaire, well, he still has $800,000, $900,000 left. So there's a different side. God does not care about the money, about the amount we can give. God cares about the heart in which we give. It's about here. It starts here, it ends here. This is where the focus of giving is. Because what she gave, the coin, and we hear it as widow's mite. If I grew up in a more traditional church, so widow's mite is what you heard it as a lot. The actual Greek word that they use is lepta. L-E-P-T-A, lepta. And if it's plural, it's lepton. And that is 1/100th of a coin that they call a drachma. The lepta is the smallest form of currency in Jesus' time. There's nothing smaller. There's not a half lepta. There's not a quarter lepta or anything like that. This is the smallest form of monetary value. The drachma wasn't even enough, which is 1/100th of that, wasn't enough to cover the taxes. In Matthew 17, Jesus told, they have to pay their temple tax. And Peter said, should we pay them? He said, well, yeah, we need to do this. So go throw out the rod, you'll pull in a fish, it'll have a coin in its mouth, and it says that it's a 4 drachma coin. That'll be enough to cover our taxes. The tax is just the temple tax for the 2 men was 2 drachma each. This woman, what she gave was 198 coins, lepton, short of just the temple tax. She didn't have enough for the taxes they would collect, let alone for it to be any substantial amount. This would be equal to a 4 drachma coin. This would be 2 lepta. They're even bronze. Our coin that we use as our penny is actually pretty similar to a lepta. If you ever look it up, go home and look it up. It looks almost identical to this. Obviously it's not as perfectly formed because they had to make their coins by hand. But they almost look like this. Now, let's do a real simple question here of math. Which would you rather have? Anyone choosing the 2 pennies over a $5 bill? Landon wants 2 pennies, all right. I'll give you my 2 cents. But we all know which amount's more. We all know which amount's bigger. No one's thinking, man, I really want these 2 pennies. The term, the coin that they used, was used all the way until they actually switched to the euro increase. So it was used for a very long time. So there's actually a time when you could convert that to US currency. You want to know how many lepton it takes to equal monetary value in the US dollar? You need to have 10 drachma to equal 3.1 cents. That's like 1,000 lepta to equal 3 cents in our dollar. The currency that she gave was everything she had. And Jesus said she gave more than the people who gave 10% of everything they had. They had surplus. They had a lot. When you get a bonus check, and you're like, I tithe on my bonus check still. You tithe on your bonus check. You give from that. You're tithing from your surplus, right? Because if you ever had a bonus, or you ever kind of get that random check in the mail, it's that extra funds that you get. It's that surplus. But she didn't give from that. She gave everything. There was a time in my life when I was unemployed. I just got laid off from my good job at Kraft, working in the factory, making good money. Made really great financial decisions and had like 4 or 5 cars. Not really great. Terrible financial decisions in that. And I was 20. My dad moves away about a few months after that, so I'm living, and one of my friends moves in with me just so we can afford to make it. And that's just barely getting by. And when I started tithing, it wasn't when I made all the money I was making at Kraft then. A 20-year-old making $15, $16 an hour is a lot of money. So I spent it like a 20-year-old would spend it. But when I started tithing, wasn't then. I started tithing when I'm like, I don't know if what I have is enough to pay my bills even. And that's when I started giving. And the craziest thing happened. My bills were still paid. Things were done on time. When me and Kristen first got married, I had just started my job where I work at United Healthcare now. And as I'm working there, she was going back to nursing school, and we were just, again, barely getting by. Have you ever had ramen noodle soup and hot dogs and macaroni on a regular basis? That's what we ate a lot of. Because you can buy, a big pack of ramen noodle soup, like the whole box for like $1. It's like, okay, let's see, there's 12 in here. That's about 6 days worth of meals. Okay, we're good to go. But we would live on that sometimes, or we would do this or we'd do that. We didn't have a lot of times where we had steak and we had nicer things, but we gave, even though it was tight, and we made it. And then as we've been married, like most people do as they get older, they tend to make a little bit more money sometimes. And as we've grown, we've never gone back to thinking, well, this is too much to give. Even though the amount may be more now, it's easier to give the money now than it was then. Just being honest. Part of it is because now I know I need to, not because it's a personal thing where God's like, I'll smite you if you don't give, but I know I need to because that's what keeps me in check. Because I would probably blow that money on stupid things other than giving it to the church. But the reason I struggle with giving so much is because I focused on the institution I was giving to and not the people that I would go to help. When we look at the institution of the church, we're thinking, do they need my 2 cents? Is this going to make any difference? And let's be honest, in our culture today, we think, is this going to make any difference? What is $5 going to do? Who is that going to help? What is that going to achieve? But as we see with the Salvation Army, pennies, quarters, nickels, and dimes, and dollar bills add up to substantial amounts of money. in the church and what God asks us to do. It's not asking us to give thousands and millions of dollars. If you have that to give, give. But he's not saying that you have to have that to give. Instead of looking at the church, well, they don't need my money because of this, the focus should be on our heart and why we give. What does that money go to? What is it going to happen? If it's to the church, if it's to a charity, if it's, like I said, we give to Children's Miracle Network, we give to local charities. We did the fundraiser for CAM, which is a Christian action ministry that feeds people in our community. Here in the next few weeks, we'll be starting a fundraiser where Jesus was homeless to feed the kids in our community. So we see these things, and it's not the money that goes here or the money that goes there, but it's what it's actually going to do. Because God doesn't care about the amount. If you can give a lot, then you can give a lot. But me and Kristen probably give twice what we gave when we first got married. And like I said, it's easier. Because how much easier is it to give out a surplus than it is to give when money's tight? You ever have your car break down and you got like $1,000 bill you got to pay to fix your car, and you're thinking, well, maybe I could hold that tithe off till next week, and then we might make it for this one, and then we could do this. You ever had those conversations? I have. I'm being honest. And this is where Kristen's a great voice of reason. She's like, no, we need to give. We'll find a way. It'll be okay. And usually, actually always, I never had a time where it wasn't. We were okay. Maybe the shop didn't cash the check till a week later after we got the next check. It was weird things would happen. Because I know me, if a customer's writing large checks to me, I'm not going to be waiting months or weeks to cash a check. Let's get this going. But sometimes they did. Sometimes it ended up being till when we actually had all the money. Sometimes we'd get a random check in the mail from someone, hey, we owed you this, or we needed to get you this, or we felt like we should give you this, and we would make it. But it's not about the amount we give, but it's about the heart. So it's starting here and then moving forward. It's not looking around and thinking, well, this doesn't add up to anything. This doesn't have any significant value. So generosity starts and ends with the heart. That's where it's going to start. That's where it's going to end. Your generosity will never come from your mind. If you're like most people, it'll never come in your mind. My mind is not telling me, hey, you should give that person money. You know what my mind tells me? That person's probably faking it. Or that person doesn't need money. That person needs to do this. That person needs to do that. In our head, we try to find all these excuses and all these reasons why we shouldn't give. But our heart is where the compassion comes from. Our heart is where it's looking out and where we're seeing. Something that we can see in Scripture, and this is actually from the Old Testament where it talks about this. In Exodus 35, 5a. I don't list the whole verse 5 because it actually goes into a list of things they're asking for. But it says, this is Moses, take a sacred offering for the Lord. Let those with generous hearts present the following gifts to the Lord. I point this out because of generous hearts. They have 1 million people with them. And he doesn't say, if 1 million people all bring one of this, we'll get exactly what we need. It says, make a decree, take a sacred offering for the Lord, let those with generous hearts. Not everybody. And this is why I think it's important. If you hate tithing, you hate giving to a church, you hate giving to a charity, and this is going to sound crazy, don't tithe here. If you hate it, don't. Because if you hate it, you're not giving for the right reasons. If you hate it, you despise it, you think it's a waste of time, you think it's a waste of money, don't do it here. I know people think pastor's gone crazy. It's okay. Until your heart is in the right place, tithing means nothing. Because sure, it might be a little bit more money here, a little bit more money there, but for the most part, it's just hurting you and it's not helping anything. But if your heart's in the right place when you're giving, that's what God wants us to do. He wants you to give with the generous heart. He wants you to give with a joyful heart. He wants you to be happy about it. When I first gave, and this is why I struggled with it, because I wasn't happy about it. It's like, why should I give my money to them? They have, 400 people there. They have 50 people there. Well, this person makes this much money. They don't need my money. But like I said, if we take our focus off the institutions themselves, because the church is an institution. That's the way we view it in our mind until you're in the church and you realize that the church is the people. We view the church as an institution. Well, this church doesn't need it. But if you think of what they do at that church, well, if I don't tithe, then maybe Children's Church doesn't have money to do this that they want to do, or the youth can't do this. Something I've always been big on is if the church can afford to pay for something for the kids to go somewhere, or the teens to go somewhere, we cover it. The teens went to Empower a couple weeks ago. The teens did a fundraiser during the car show. They were a little bit short of the money, probably, $70, $80 total. From being short, the church covered it. It's not a big deal because we were able to. And we're not able to if money's tight. We're like, we're barely going to make everything right now. But when people are able to give and they're able to give generously, it allows us to be generous and really the crazy part when it comes to children and teens, it's generous back to us. And if you've ever had kids go to camp or anything like that, I used to be a youth pastor. I could get people to give to children's camp or teen camp and give to cover a kid's entire camp before they would give to the church. Because this is usually the response, well, I know that money's going to help this kid. But when we give to the church, it allows us to help the kids, it allows us to help those around us. Because God wants us to go with a generous heart before Him. If your heart's not in the right place, you hate tithing, stop tithing until your heart's in the right place. You can pray about it, I'll pray with you, I'll walk with you, because I struggled with it too. So I know most of the things that you're probably telling yourself to why it's not important, because I told myself that for a few years. It wasn't a month or two adventure where I was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I answered a call to preach at 16, and I didn't start tithing until I was like 21. There's a 5-year gap in there where I'm like, nope. I'll throw a 20 in the plate. I'll throw a 50 in the plate. I may have tithed an actual check a couple times. But most of the time it's like, no, because my focus was wrong. But God wants those with generous hearts to present the offering to the Lord. And right here, they're building the tabernacle is what they're doing. So this is the time when they're bringing in supplies. And anytime you go to build something really large, it takes a lot of supplies. For instance, when we came in here and did our construction here, you know the biggest supply that we needed? Time. I'm not a construction guy. Without James, Aaron, and Ron, all of this would not have been done. The walls would have been crooked, or if up at all. I mean, we would have had to pay a lot more money to have someone else do that, build the stage, do the background on the wall, do the TVs, do the wiring across this, do all this. If I had to do this myself, I'd probably be on a concrete floor, this would all be empty, and I might have a projector set up here somehow behind me, and it'd look okay. Maybe okay. But because we're able to we brought in each other's resources. Some of it was money, yes. Some of it was supplies. Some of it was tools. I don't have a lot of tools. The tools, sometimes those are the things that we buy that we don't use very often. It's like, well, I'll buy this tool once, because then I'll have it for next time, and then you can't find it for next time. But we had tools people have, we brought those in, we were able to get all this done because of the generous hearts of others. Like I said, I'm not construction minded. Some of you people are really good at it, but to me, I know it's and Ron and me think, Ron's like, it's just basic math. I'm like, well, I get the math part, but how many beams and how you do this and how you measure this, that, none of that makes sense to me. But I saw it done. I think I have a better idea now. I still will not do it, but I'll supervise like I did that day, and I just kind of carried stuff around. I carried heavy things. That was my job. But they took an offering, and what do you think happened when they took an offering? Was it, okay, only a few people gave, but that wasn't what happened. What happened, and we'll come back to this, but what happened was they went to Moses. These are the contractors. He put people in charge of each area. Right? You're in charge of the wood, you're in charge of the gold, you're in charge of the silver, you're in charge of all these different areas. You're going to make the curtains, you're going to do this. Those guys all went to Moses and reported, the people have given more than enough. Tell them to stop. That's the short version. More than enough, tell them to stop. More than enough materials to complete the job the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses gave the command, and this message was sent throughout the camp. Men and women, don't prepare any more gifts for the sanctuary. We have enough. So the people stopped bringing in the sacred offerings. Their contributions were more than enough to complete the whole project. So he made a decree, said those with generous hearts, not everyone, just those with generous hearts, give what you can give, so we can get the tabernacle built, the tent of meeting that they were having, God's home, where he went with them, their sanctuary, their church. And then they had to say, hey, we have too many materials. We have more than enough. I have several friends and family who have built houses in the last couple of years, the last few years. You know what their contractors have never told them? We have more than enough. It's okay. We don't need it anymore. Usually it's, yeah, we actually underbid this, or if you want this option, this is an extra $2,000. It'll be done in November, but then they move into February because it took an extra 2 or 3 months. It seems like, for people building today at least, I don't know about them, but we're always short and we always need more. Even here at the church of construction we knew we were doing most of the labor, so we set aside a budget. By the time we bought chairs and we bought the little things that you actually need to have inside of the church, because it was empty in here, we ended up going over the original budget we set by a few thousand. But we were faithful, we were giving earnestly. Our account never got below the amount where we were trying to get below. It wasn't that, it was, like somehow we saved money on everything, but God met the need on the other side of it for us too. When we give, it becomes more than enough. It's giving with that generous heart. He doesn't want everyone to give, because if you're not in a heart to give, if you're not in a place to give, then you don't have to. But what I do think is important, and this is why I want to say this, as I'm talking about having the heart, not being able to, it's not that it's going to be easy when you first start giving. It'll never be easy. I promise you. Because if you're, I'll wait till I have X dollars in my account and then I'll start tithing. Something will come up every time you get close to that number. If you're like me, something will always come up, something will happen. The car breaks down, the roof gets a leak, your AC breaks, whatever it is, something will happen. But if you feel like this is what I need to do, you feel convicted to give, you feel like you need to because it's part of what you're supposed to do, that's when you do it. It's allowing, and then you do that through, and you become generous through that. But you don't have to start by giving everything that you have. Because you never will. Because if you start and you think, this is the line I have to meet, this is where I'll mess up. One thing that if you've never given in your entire life, you've never donated to a charity, donated to a church, you've never given, something I usually say is start with the number you're comfortable with. If it's 4%, if it's 2%, if it's 5%, start at that number. Pick a number and say, this is what I'm going to give. I want to give because I believe in what this is going to do. You pick that number, and then the next year, you try to increase it. And then you work from there. If it's a percentage, if it's a dollar amount, but work from there. Because you will never start giving if you wait till you have enough. You will never start giving if I can't give $300 a month, I'm not going to give anything at all. I'd rather you give your last 2 cents than give nothing at all when you want to. When you feel like that's what God wants you to do, that's when you need to give. Because when we give generously from the heart, there's more than enough. It takes multiple people, it takes generous hearts, it takes giving, it takes working from a place where we're working together to get there. If Moses had made the decree and said, only the people from this tribe give this, or from this tribe give that, because there was 12 different tribes, there's 12 different families. If that's the decree he made, would they have received all the supplies? What if he commanded everyone to give X% of what they had? Would they have gotten there? What about all the people who were commanded to give this, but then they don't have it? But he said, those with generous hearts, those that have surplus, those that are able to, those that can. Now, if you look at those two, you think those kind of contradict each other. Those with generous hearts, but then this widow is giving only 2 cents, but other people are giving 10% of their surplus. Isn't that what he's talking about here? What he's talking about is that originally, when people would give, and he talks about the 10%, he talks about storing up in heaven, he talks about storing up your treasures where they won't collect dust, and they won't rust, and moths won't destroy everything you have. He talks about that too. But sometimes you don't have the 10%, because did the lady give her 10%? That's the question we don't know. She gave her 2 small coins. But maybe she had medical expenses because she was having an illness. Maybe she, and it says she was a widow, so she didn't have a husband. Maybe she didn't have a way of income herself. And those 2 coins was all she had for anything. So then she was going to have to rely on the charity of others for her to survive. And if you actually look at some of the Old Testament, the way they lived, you know who was supposed to take care of the widows and the orphans? The church. People. If you look at Jesus, he says, take care of the widows and the orphans when they're forming the new church in Acts. Take care of the widows and the orphans. Take care of the widows and the orphans. So it was someone's job, but she gave everything she had. It may not have been much. I mean, if I told you I only have 2 cents to my name and I give my 2 cents to the church, it's not going to seem like much. But when it's everything you have, and you're giving it because you feel like that's what you need to give, that's a generous part of your heart. Because generosity is not something that you're going to just wake up one day and feel, I'm feeling really generous today. Because I never have. I've grown to that point, but I did not just wake up and think, I'm feeling generous today. Honestly, when I first started giving, you know what the feeling I had was? I was scared. Because I'm thinking, well, what if I need this money? What happens if, because I'm an analytical person, well, what happens if, this $30, what if this $30 is the $30 I need so I can buy groceries this week? What if this $30 that I give is going to cover this, or if it's going to cover for that? I don't know. How do I know what's going to happen? But then as I started giving, I started not even counting that money as my income. Like when I look at my check, it's like, well, sure, I make this, but then I kind of look at my income, what I give in my tithing. I look at that as even before taxes, because this is give God your first fruits, which I believe God should come before the government, and that's a whole other discussion. But I give before that, and then I give from that, and then I let the government take the portion that they feel they need to take from my check, which is usually more than I think, and then you go from there. But if I was able to look at it at first, and I didn't start there, I started, okay, this is what I brought home, this is what I can give, and I move forward. This is what I can give, and then I found when I was giving, I would give it there. I let go of it more wisdom when someone would come up to me, hey man, this is going on. I was at a church in Springfield, and it was not on the good side of town. It was on the west side of town. It was on Scenic and Mount Vernon. And I would drive in from Bolivar, and I'd stop at the Casey's right on the other side of 44 and 13, if you're familiar with this area. It's 44 and 13 actually has a higher population of homeless people in Springfield. A lot of people, there's a few homeless camps. I go in the gas station. I think I got gas, and I got like a couple donuts that morning. I'm heading to church. Kristen worked the night before. And I walk out of the gas station, hold my drink and a couple donuts, and the guy, asks me, hey man, you got a couple bucks to spare? And I'm like, man, I don't carry cash on me. It's like, but I got 2 donuts. Do you want one? Yeah, man, I'm starving. I haven't eaten in days, or whatever. It's like, what's a donut cost at Casey's? Like 79 cents, $1? It wasn't much, but it's like, this is what I have. I can give this to you. So I give him the donut, and I think I might have given him both donuts, and I went on my way and just kind of kept going. But if he would have come to me before I ever started giving, before I ever found there was some generosity in me, I probably would have been like, no man, I don't have anything, and kept going. Know how I know that's how I would have responded? Because that's how I've responded before. I used to work on, right there, I worked at T-Mobile 44 and West Bypass, so I used to go through that all the time. And I would, no. You see people, the signs up asking for money at the intersections, and a lot of times I'd pass those and be like, you like most people kind of look away, but then sometimes it's like, God tells you you need to give. I've given people food, I've given people money, I've prayed with people on the side of the highway, I don't know. But I don't say I always do, but when I feel like God says, hey, you should give this person something, I do. It's not because I'm better than you, it's not because I'm better than anyone else. There's probably people that do that every single day, that give from money they have less than me, and they do it. But what I'm saying is that when we find a way that we allow generosity into our heart, it affects other areas. Generosity is not just going to go into our heart and stop. It's not just going to come into us. It's not just going to explode either, though. Generosity is not easy, but generosity is contagious. Perfect example of this. I used to work in fast food, and it was right, and 88.3 started like the pay it forward thing. And I'm sure Landon had seen this at Chick-fil-A, where someone will pay for someone's meal, and then what happens is sometimes is that someone pays for a meal, you're really excited about it, and then that person will, what's the person's meal behind me cost? Okay, yeah, I'll pay for those too. And then it kind of goes down the line. There's literally restaurants, and I'm sure Chick-fil-A and Branson's probably had long streaks of that too, where it's gone hours of someone paying for someone else's meal. That's insane. If I remember correctly, I want to say you guys got close to like a whole shift almost, didn't you? Like 8 hours or something like that? Could you imagine someone paying for people's food for 8 hours? Generosity is contagious, because I guarantee you, those people that went in there for that 8 hours were not going in there thinking, I'm going to pay for the person's food behind me. You know what they're thinking? I'm going to pay for my chicken sandwich and my fries and my drink, and I'm going home. Then also the other thing I wonder is, how many of those people were the single person? I don't know if you've ever gone through there intending to do that. You pull in there, you're by yourself, and then like a van full of people pull in behind you, and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to pay for $60 worth of food. Like you start checking your account. How much money do I got, Lord? Like, I guess this is a blessing here. But it's something that's contagious and it moves forward. Just another example of this, me and Kristen Martinez, we meet every month and we talk about church and worship, and it's just kind of our little staff meeting we do every month. We go to the same Mexican restaurant every time. That's kind of our pattern right now. Kristen doesn't like Mexican food that much, and Fernanda doesn't like Mexican food that much, so it works out. My Kristen doesn't. And I can eat Mexican food about every day. So it's like, this works. When we were sitting there last month, we're talking about church, and there was a couple sitting behind us. I don't remember if it was a man and a woman, or two men talking, or two women talking. There was a couple of people behind us. And we were talking about church, and I saw them you kind of tell when people's ears perk up, like I overheard something you said. Didn't think anything of it. We're just sitting there, and we keep talking. The lady comes up to us, someone else already paid your bill, and I was just kind of like, there's only 3 tables in there, because we go in there at like 11 or 11:15, like right when they open. And it was like, someone paid for our meal. That's really nice of them. But doesn't that feel good when you receive like that? It feels good when I give like that too. They always say it's better to give than to receive. For when it comes to Christmas shopping, I would much rather shop for Kristen and give her stuff and give other stuff than anyone shop for me. I've turned into my dad. My dad was always the hardest person in the world to shop for. You know why? Because when he wanted something, well, I'll just go buy it. I've turned into him. If I want something, unless it's just stupid expensive, which puts it off most people's Christmas list. If you want to spend an absurd amount on me, I'll send you a list of things I'm saving up to buy. But most people, it's that $20, $30, maybe $50 if they really like you. But you're like, well, I buy these things when I want. It's, when I can, I just do, so I'm incredibly difficult to shop for. So I'd rather just give. But when I do give, if you've ever had that moment where you've given to someone and it's obviously is an impact to them, it's a blessing to them, whatever's going on in their life, it brightens their day. It brightens yours too. But when we buy, I talk about in the beginning, these toys, these gadgets, these things, because I love gadgets and things that are new to technology, and I probably have a closet full of things like small drones and stuff like that I just don't use because, well, flying a drone is really hard. Flying a small drone outside is even harder. I don't know if any of you ever tried. I'll bring it sometime. You gotta hold it up in the air, and it needs more hand-eye coordination than I have apparently. But I have all these little things that I thought I had to have. But maybe sometimes that same money that I had to buy these things with, because I just had to have, I could give to someone else that needs the money a lot more than I do, and it changes their day. But then what happens is the generosity isn't usually in there. Because if you've ever gotten a gift from somebody, then you give it to someone else. One of my friends who was a pastor at a conference I was at, he was telling the story that he usually, his church, when he travels, they kind of give him a wad of 20s, and it's so he can give to people he feels he needs to give money to. For whatever reason, he feels like he's supposed to, even if it's tip them extra at the restaurant, if it's someone he runs into, he gives them money. Well, and now I'm not saying it's a wad like he carries $1,000 on him, but he has some 20s they give and that he uses that with. Well, when he was leaving the church that he was speaking at, because he does evangelistic work, so he travels from church to church, someone gave him $100, said, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to give this to you. So they go to a restaurant, and they get the worst service he's ever had in his life. They're with the pastor of the church, and even the pastor and his wife are complaining about the service. They're wanting to speak to the manager. It's just a terrible time. And he's like, he's telling this, he's like, I never returned my food. He's like, I never asked to speak to a manager. He said, I'm on a 2-year fast, and that's a gripe fast. I don't get to gripe, I don't get to complain, I don't get to have any of those things. He said, that's what I'm fasting from. Which is something I think a lot of us could probably use, especially me. But he says, the lady comes up, and he said he starts hearing this little voice in his head telling him, you should give her that $100 bill. His thought's the same as most of ours. But God, I got these 20s in my pocket I can give. He's like, no, you need to give her the $100 bill. So he said, well, I get the money out. He said, I hand it to her. And he said, I don't know what you're going through today, but I feel like I'm supposed to give this to you. He says, the lady looks at him and just kind of starts to cry. You don't know the day I've had. And he said, well, I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I feel like I kind of do. You kind of throwing drinks at us and throwing food at us. And she goes on to tell him what difference that made. Do you think the $100 meant more to him or more to her? Generosity allows us to do that. And then she may have a time when she feels she's supposed to give to someone else. Another perfect example of this, my mom was in a really bad car accident when I was 17. She was paralyzed from the neck down. We have friends, another friend who's actually an evangelist. They actually came and they sing and everything, and they did kind of a fundraiser for us. And one of the guys that I went to church with at the Nazarene Church in Seymour came up to me, and he handed me, literally it was a wad of $100 bills, I didn't count it, and said, someone gave this to me when our son was in the hospital, and I feel like I'm supposed to give it to you. His son was in the hospital because they thought when he was being born he had some heart defect. I don't remember what it was. He's like 10 or 11 now, and he's in perfect health. But then he was being born with a heart defect, and he was going to have to be delivered in St. Louis, and they were afraid that he wasn't going to make it or anything like that. But the church gave, and the church prayed, and people were all over the country were praying for him. And like I said, you can't tell there's anything wrong with the boy now. He's perfect health. But someone gave to him in a time of need. He gave to us in a time of need. And I know my dad has given to others when they were in a time of need. And it may not be an immediate round of generosity. He may not have turned around and handed that away, but the generosity was contagious. If someone would have given the money to him, would he have given the money to us? And if he hadn't given the money to us, would my dad have turned around and been able to be as generous with other people down the road? It's contagious. It moves through us. And allows us to look beyond ourselves. And even when we look at it scripturally, 1 Timothy 6:18-19 says, tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works. That means they should do good. They should also do good. And be generous to those in need. Always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasures as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. Always being ready to do good. If generosity is contagious, if generosity is something that we can spread, isn't it something we'd rather spread than spread, hatred or fear or doubts or any of those things that we seem like we always tell people are complaints, but, grumble fast. Time to move away from it. But use our money to do good. And I love that he says this, because he's talking about, tell them to use their money for good. Paul is talking to one of his prime proteges, Timothy, who's actually the first megachurch pastor ever. He's actually pastored the largest church inside the New Testament Bible period. And it says that he was young when he took on the church too. But he says, tell them to use their money to good. But he says it doesn't end just with their money. They should be rich in good works. They should do good works. They should serve. They should help people. They should do these things. But tell them to use their money to do good. Be generous to those in need. Always being ready to share with others. I think this is one of the areas where, as a society, we fail the most, is that we're not always ready to share with others. We're not always generous to those in need. Part of it is, and I hate to say it's part of it is because there are people that we've seen reports of where people took advantage of it. If you've seen the news this week, if you guys remember the homeless guy that gave his last $20 to the lady to pump gas so she could get back home, they did like a GoFundMe account and they raised like $400,000. Well, this last week, now they're all being prosecuted and taken to jail because they were in cohorts to take money from people, but the couple didn't share the money, enough money with the other guy, so he was suing them, and then that's how it found out that they were all working together. That type of thing is what keeps us from being generous. Because you think, well, if I give it to them, how do I know they really need it? How do I know that they are? That's part of me why I don't give to charities. I don't know. Because there's some charities where they literally only give 10% of everything they get to somebody else, which I know businesses that do the same thing. And then there's some charities that give almost everything back to the people. So it's like I try to give to those that it's not all being wound up inside administrative costs, but it's actually going to make a difference. That's why like the shoe boxes, like when we do those are great things because they're going directly to the kids. There's not some big overhead, well, all this money is going to go to headquarters and then they'll distribute a very small portion back to the kids. It goes to them. Jesus was homeless. When we do the Feed the Kids drive, all that money goes to feed the kids. It's not going, well, we need to pay for this and pay for that, and they'll get a little bit of that. But when we look at it, we need to be always ready to share with others, to do good, to use our money for good, to be generous with it, however we see that we need to. One of the things that me and my dad have talked about, my dad's given money to people. My dad's actually more generous than most people I knew before he was in church. People will walk up to him and say, hey man, we got here and our people do that in Walmart, we're out of gas, we need this. And my dad would give him a 20, and this is usually my dad's response to it. It's not my responsibility what they do with it. He's like, I did what I felt like I should do. It's not my responsibility what they do with it. Sometimes for myself, I have to remind that to me. When I'm saying, well, I won't give here because I don't know what they do for, but when God's telling me to give, I need to give. That's where I need to be able to focus, because a generous heart is always ready to give. A generous heart doesn't have a time when it's like, oh, I'm not really ready. But if you have a generous heart, it's always ready to give. And the gift that you do give, how you give it, it'll be more than enough to meet the need. It may not be individually more than enough, but as a collective, it will be more than enough. If we give to individuals, if we give to churches, if we give to charities, if we give to whoever, it'll be enough. Because sometimes we focus on the fact that we only have so much to give, and that won't make much of a difference. But what if you're so much that you can give is the difference of them missing their bill or missing what they need and actually making with what others give? It happens. A generous heart's always ready to give. The gift that will be more than enough. It'll be more than enough. But we see that through Scripture when we give generously, and the people that give generously. And it moves on, it's contagious, so then it happens with more people. It's more than enough to meet the needs. We don't have to allow it to be like, it's all on me, it's all or nothing. Give what you can give. Ask if everyone will stand with me. And I know money is always a beautifully fun topic, but Jesus actually talks about money about more than anything else. So I don't really mind talking about it. It also probably helps that I deal with money on a very regular basis. I can write $250,000 checks for my work, and tell me the first time you do that, that is nerve-wracking. You're like, what if I do this wrong? But money, we kind of make it where it's a taboo subject, but it's really not. Money, the subject that we make out of money is what we take out of it. If we take the money as ours to use, and it's only ours, and everything we have is ours, or if we view the money as God's, and what we have is God's, and He allows us to use the other 90%, or the 80% or 70% or whatever. Because I have a friend who one year they gave 70% of their money to the church because that's what they felt like they were supposed to do. I'm not that friend yet. I haven't done that. I hope to be able to one day. But when you can get to those places where you have a generous heart, it allows you to do more than you ever thought. So let's go ahead and ask everyone to just bow their heads.